Hi, everybody, and welcome to Creepy and Geeky. This is our second episode, and we're going to be talking about Krampus and Trick or Treat, the holiday horrors of Mike Dougherty. All right, but first up, we're going to talk about some stuff we've been getting into in terms of, geeky stuff, creepy stuff, whatever we've been watching, reading, anything like that. Harrison, what would you like to start off with?
So last night I saw Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City.
Okay.
And gotta say it was an experience. It wasn't too bad. It was enjoyable for a zombie film, but I think that there were some things it missed. Seemed fairly faithful to the games from a non-player perspective, but it at least made me interested in playing the games. It made me interested in exploring the world a little bit further, and more so than the movies from the 2000s and the 90s did.
Right. I don't know if we mentioned on the first episode, but both you and Katrina both work at an AMC theater together, and so you guys end up getting to see, and I do too, by proxy. We all get to see a lot of the movies that are coming out, so we'll probably be popping some of those in now and again. Yeah, I have never seen the Resident Evil movies before, the original stuff. I've never seen any of those. I've never been into the video games either, and so I've never really wanted to explore those. They've always looked a little too silly for me. And so this new movie, I haven't even seen a trailer for this new movie yet or anything. It's like, I don't know, weirdly,
I don't think it got a lot of promo.
No, I didn't.
I don't think most video game movies do, because it's mostly just like fan base related with the promotion.
Right.
So I don't think.
Well, and I've heard this movie's not getting
general public.
Yeah, and I don't think this movie's getting good crowds either. Like, most theaters are really empty. I've seen a lot of stuff.
We haven't been selling a lot of tickets.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talking about that too. Yeah. So, and the fans, like a lot of the hardcore Resident Evil fans, are not digging it.
Well, and so, I'm a fan of survival horror games, but it's just always been a dark spot in terms of how I guess my wheelhouse of gaming. It hasn't ever come across my desk.
It's also just like really interesting to see the different crowds that come in for, like, I know that Casey Musgraves had a movie that came out and she sold out 2 of our theaters for that. And just one My Hero Academia movie and the Demon Slayer movie, and those sold out like a few theaters during the first few weeks, or like the first week. But for video games,
I don't know why video games.
It's really weird.
Well, and I think that from a general audience perspective, I think it missed its mark because it came out during December, or late November.
Well, I think they're trying to counter program. Yeah, they tried to counter program with stuff like that. It's like, hey, let's put out this horror movie when people aren't expecting horror movies, and so that way the people who don't care about holiday or awards fair, they have something to watch. So, which is why I think that we're getting like Spider-Man in a couple of weeks, and we're getting The Matrix. We're getting these like
there's 4
action
new big movies that are coming out just this month for December.
Yeah.
But I mean, the holidays have always been big for big blockbusters.
Yeah, true.
Some of Star Wars came out during the Christmas season.
Yeah, the last few.
It's summer and the holidays; those are the big ones.
Well, they try from my limited perspective of it is that they seem to try to, especially like Christmas week, they try to pack in a couple of blockbusters to get people out, because they know there's going to be a lot of kids out of school, a lot of people
The Matrix and the Kingsman come out on the 22nd, the week right before Christmas.
Yeah, both of those I want to see, and Spider-Man I want to see.
That's the weird thing about Resident Evil, was that it came out during the same week as Encanto during the Thanksgiving weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was such an odd Thanksgiving, like, family movie to release at the time, because I don't consider Resident Evil as a family film.
Yeah, no.
You'd want to see with your family.
When we had the horror movies out for Halloween, the trailer for Resident Evil wasn't playing all the time.
I don't remember seeing this trailer at all, ever.
Well, and also in regards to posters and things, we have only recently put up a poster for Resident Evil, and it's inside of one of the less or traffic hallways inside of the theater.
Yeah, see, I just don't think it's getting like. I think that's part of the problem is like a lot of people don't even know it's out. Yeah. Yes, the hardcore Resident Evil fans might know it's out, but it's just nobody else knows that it's out. But speaking of Encanto, Katrina actually just went and saw that yesterday. So what did you think about that?
I thought it was really good. It like exceeded my expectations. So I use TikTok, and so there were some TikToks about a specific song from the movie that was sung by Louisa, the like really big strong woman.
Okay.
And
I've seen the trailers for this one.
I was really, really excited to watch it for just her song, and like, not surprisingly because it's a Disney movie, but still surprisingly, the songs in the movie were amazing. Like, I genuinely love the movie, and I loved, like, it's not like a typical like Disney princess kind of like film, and I was so happy about the representation that it gave to the Latino like Latinx community, because it had Afro Latinos, it had light skinned Latinos, like it had everything. So, and that's then cool. It was the first like main protagonist in a Disney movie that wore glasses. So as a person who wears glasses, I felt represented in that aspect. So it was a really good movie, and it made me tear up at the end.
And so you mentioned something too that I didn't realize, but Stephanie Beatrice from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, she plays Rosa. She's the main character.
Yeah, she's the voice of the main character. I don't know if she's the singing voice, but if she is, then like damn, she can sing. Like
I don't know.
I love Stephanie Beatrice, and as soon as I learned
she was so
that
awesome
she was
in
the
Brooklyn
main
Nine-Nine.
character's voice, I was like, I gotta watch it now.
I'm so sad that Brooklyn Nine-Nine was like gone, but I mean I understand why. But I love that show; it's so funny. But well, cool. I'm glad Encanto was good, and that Resident Evil was good enough that it makes you want to play the games. I mean, I guess if it's effective in that for somebody who hasn't played the games, it makes you interested in the games. Then sure, that works.
The movie missed its mark, but the world and the setting is interesting.
Right, yeah.
And so it made me interested in that at the very least.
Well, we may need to watch the original Resident Evils also, just to kind of get a sense of where they went with those too. I mean, I like Mila Jovovich. I just haven't ever watched any of those movies.
Yeah.
I mean, Fifth Element is one of my favorite movies, and she's in that one. But I mean, that was a long time ago. But anyway, so for me, I just finished watching Chucky, the TV series yesterday. I watched the finale yesterday, which was Wednesday, but the episode was on Tuesday night. It's a good series. If you're like, and I know neither one of you have seen the Chucky movies really, but the through line from the first Chucky movie to this series is so clean. Like, because Don Mancini, the writer from every movie, is like a part of it through the whole thing, and he's basically in control of it. He's like, the guy running the whole show for it, that it's amazing just to see just that level of continuity, and especially in the new series where you get like, and I mean it's in one of the other movies too, but Andy Barclay from the first movie is a character. The actual actor, the kid who played him, is still Andy Barclay in the TV series, and he's still like coming for Chucky. He's and Christina Elise, who played his like babysitter in the second Chucky movie, she's in it also, and we got Jennifer Tilly in it. We got Brad Dourif is still the voice of Chucky. Fiona Dourif, who popped up in the last two movies, who's the daughter of Brad Dourif. She plays a character in those last two movies and is a character in this. And plus, there's an all new cast of kids in this, actually played by kids. Like, so it's like awesome that you get these great kid actors with like a whole new cast, but you get these legacy characters in too, and with the actual actors coming back. And it was so much fun because it was on Sci-Fi and USA. They were actually able to get away with using bad words. So Chucky was able to say like fuck like 10 times throughout every episode. So So it was great because you didn't have to sanitize anything. So like the kills were good, like the language was like great, like everything was great. And if you like the Chucky series, like the Chucky movies, you'll like the Chucky series too. So I know we'll eventually get to that because I do want you guys to watch those because they're fun. You know, especially like the first 3 are very much horror bent, and then they kind of go like goofy with like campy with Bride and Seed, and then they get back to the horror a little bit. But they're like there's always the through line of, you know, just it being funny, even still throughout it. Like yes, they're horror, but they're a fun horror.
I mean, you got to do it when the killer's a doll.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's. I mean, Chucky's an icon at this point. I mean, and even the remake. The remake is good. It's not, to me, it's not a Child's Play movie. It's not a Chucky movie because it's just so removed from the rest of it that it just feels different. And because they use a different conceit for how Chucky is animated and stuff like that, it's just weird and different. But I mean, it's still a good movie. I just don't think they should have called it Child's Play. But that's all I got on Chucky. What else have you been into, Harrison?
Recently, I've really gotten into a RPG system called Numenera. It's made by Monty Cook Games. It's a hyper-futuristic setting set 1 billion years in our future where we're long and gone and 8 other civilizations are long and gone, and now it's the new age of humanity as they kind of pick through the remnants of these hyper advanced civilizations that came before them. And so I'm a sucker for post-apocalyptic narratives, and so for myself it kind of hits that, as well as just the fun nature of a system where you pick up something you don't understand and you poke at it and you prod at it and it might explode in your hand, or it might do something incredible and you might find it useful. And just the inherent kind of gonzo fun of that aspect of you never know what's going to happen when you pick up that metal object you found in a bunch of old stone.
Sounds interesting. We've talked about it a little bit and about how, like, you know, people have a theory that, and, you know, I kind of hold to this theory myself. The world's 4 billion years old. And that, you know, sure, we're currently the people who are alive on the planet, but were there other civilizations before even the dinosaurs hit and everything else? And just the world moved on and something happened and everything died off. And then out of that, something else grew later. That's fascinating to me as a theory. And so it sounds like, you know, this game system, this RPG, is very much in line with that kind of theory about how, you know, after we go and after our stuff is gone, does that, you know, lead to, you know, other civilizations down the road, and that's interesting to see what's left over. So that's cool, very cool. All right, Katrina, do you have anything else?
Recently, I've been watching the Marvel's Runaway series on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So I had originally watched the first and second season, but I hadn't watched the third season, and it's been a couple of years since I watched them. So I wanted to watch the third season, but I had forgotten a lot of what happened. So I'm currently almost at the end of the second season, and I'm still enjoying it as much as I enjoyed it the first time I watched it. So.
Yeah, I petered out at the beginning of the second season on that. Like, it just, I don't know how, I got distracted and got derailed from it.
I watched it first, and then I asked you to watch it with me, and then...
we watched the first season, and then by the second season, I was just kind of like, I'm going to do something else for now, I'll come back to it, and then I never got back to it. So
yeah, you do that a lot.
I do. ADD.
I haven't watched a single episode, so I have no idea.
I mean, it's
okay. A good series.
It's okay. I mean, it's not bad.
About teenage runaways with powers. And
if you know the comic books and stuff like that too, like it does a good job at adapting the comic books without being exactly slavish to them, which is a good thing. I think that you know, in general, comic book movies that basically adapt it in their way, because I mean, there's only so much you can do in live action that is different than in comic books. You just can't do the same thing.
I don't know anything about the comics, so I'm just watching it to watch it. So.
No, I mean, and as that is, I think it's a fairly good show, even in of itself, they've got some good actors and stuff. The kids and the adults. The adults are peppered with like genre actors and like James Marsters from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
The guy who plays Chase in Runaways is Greg Sulkin, and he played I forgot his character's name, but he plays a werewolf in Wizards of Waverly Place, which is where I first knew him from. So, and also
Katrina's
he's British, and he does a pretty good American accent. So
Katrina is a very big fan of Wizards of Waverly Place.
It was my show.
It was her jam.
I mean, it's not bad.
It's
it was an okay show. I mean, Disney does a pretty good job at some of their shows. I mean, they're very they're very like
they have a type
sugary.
The era of like That's So Raven, Hannah Montana, Wizards of Waverly Place, like Good Luck Charlie, Shake It Up, all of those shows were the best era of Disney because they did crossovers. They had like Disney Game Day that had during that time period on Nickelodeon. They had the Nickelodeon Game of Play and or Day of Play. And
Sweet Life was on Disney too, right?
Yeah, Sweet Life was on. Yeah, Sweet Life too. So like,
I know you really like that.
That
show
whole
too.
era of like the early to late 2000s.
Watching all that stuff a lot.
Like was just.
I mean, it's
perfect.
made
it's what
a
I grew
lot of
up
people's
on,
careers
so.
today.
True.
A lot of the people who are really popular today, like Ariana Grande and
Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato, still Selena Gomez. Like,
well, I think it's funny too because you guys mentioned the two people who weren't on Disney shows, but they were like on Nickelodeon shows.
Yeah, but still.
But I get what you're saying.
That era is very
and iCarly is back.
Influential on the time.
So
have you watched the new iCarly?
I haven't watched it, but I've heard it's good. Also,
you need to watch that.
The guy, Avon Jogia, he plays a character in Victorious, and he's in Resident Evil. Welcome back
he's the guy that plays Leon.
Oh, that's funny.
And where was he at before?
He was on Victorious.
Oh, that's funny.
He played Beck on Victorious.
That's funny.
He was one of the better aspects of Resident Evil.
Good. He's a great actor.
Yeah.
His character in Victorious was an ass, but generally, like, he played the character well. So
yeah. Okay. Well, Harrison and I have been watching, speaking of Marvel stuff, Harrison and I have been watching Hawkeye. It just premiered on Disney Plus last week. I've seen the first 3. Harrison's only seen the first 2. I'm really enjoying it. I've had issues with the character of Hawkeye being portrayed in the MCU since the beginning because they have basically used the Ultimate Universe version of him, who's the Black Ops guy with a family and everything, and that's fine, but it's not the Hawkeye I know and love, which is the former Carney guy who is just cocky and just sarcastic, and so you weren't getting a lot of that in the MCU movie stuff, and you're kind of seeing a little bit of that now in the Hawkeye series now. So for me, that's been enjoyable, and also getting the aspect of him having his hearing aid and his hearing loss, even though it's coming about in a different way, which is totally fine. I find that fascinating, and it plays into the current episode, Harrison, that you haven't seen just yet.
Got it. No, this version of Hawkeye in the films has been very timid. I would say he's a very follows orders. He doesn't really kind of make waves among the Avengers too often. He has his own interpersonal relationships with Natasha and that, but I am in agreement with you on that. I think that I'm happy to see these changes to Hawkeye because I'm hoping to see even more changes for him as a character, because something that I really miss about the character and kind of upset now that we know what's happened to Cap, but we didn't ever get Hawkeye challenging Cap actually having really any agency among the team in terms of trying to actually co-lead.
No, he was really underplayed,
because Hawkeye's a leader in the comics. And it's something that I think is missing in the movies.
Well, and I mean, he's a leader in the comic books in a sense. I mean, he has led, he led the West Coast Avengers. He led the Thunderbolts for a short time. He led the Great Lakes Avengers. So he's had these little bits. I mean, especially with West Coast Avengers, especially where he had a larger role in leading them, but overall, he's usually portrayed, even in the comic books, as just the lovable ass. He's a jerk, but in a fun way, and I think that we're kind of getting that. I don't think we're getting that too much yet, and again, because he's got the family aspect, so it kind of softens his character a lot, and so I think that we're still going to get some of that, but I think that they're keeping true to the MCU as much as possible without exploring it. But it's good to see Kate Bishop. It's good to see Pizza Dog, the Tracksuit Mafia. The whole thing's going on. It's really fun to see all that, and then the fallout of the Ronin stuff is interesting too. To see that coming back to haunt him. But I'm excited for some of the other stuff that's being hinted at that, as a comic book fan, that I'm aware of that might possibly play into things, characters and such, that they're kind of teasing. So that's going to be a lot of fun for me. And then also, what I've been doing the last month here and then is I've been watching some giallo movies. I've never really gotten to explore those very much. They just weren't something that was high on my radar. I knew that they were a subgenre of horror that a lot of people dig, and that they were a precursor to the more modern era of slashers. And so we went and saw Last Night in Soho, and I loved that.
Great movie.
That was so
amazing
good.
movie.
It was so good.
Probably my favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, no,
Same.
it's definitely exactly. It's
As
probably,
the year is coming to a close.
Yeah.
Allison Mackenzie and Anna Taylor-Joy were
they're so good in this.
so good.
So good. It was an amazing movie. It's
Artistically, it was beautiful.
Oh yeah,
So-
the set design, the colors, the lighting,
Suspenseful,
the acting,
dramatic.
yeah,
the
everything.
editing even.
Yeah.
Like it was
It was so good. It was so good. But because of that, I got strong giallo vibes from that, because I knew enough about giallo to really get that vibe from it. And I even showed Harrison a video after we watched it and was like, look, this is giallo. And I showed him a video on YouTube about what giallo was and about the hallmarks of it and everything. He's like, yeah, this is definitely something that is there. You can see the signs of it. And so then that made me really want to explore giallo for the first time. And I'd only seen the spoof called The Editor and the original Suspiria, and I liked both of those. And I know Suspiria is one of those ones that people are like, is it or is it not giallo? But I think that it falls into that camp. It's not a traditional giallo at all, but it has a lot of the hallmarks of it. And so I went back and I started sort of from the beginning. The first one I watched was Blood and Black Lace by Mario Bava, and I've gotten up to Deep Red by Dario Argento. I'd say most of them are okay. I really like Blood and Black Lace, and then Deep Red was really good too. I can see why it's a lot of people's favorite. I'm excited to see some of the later works that I have yet to get to. So far, those two I would say are pretty decent. The rest I've seen are just kind of okay-ish. Nothing really jumped out at me, but it's definitely something that you two should maybe take a look at. I can give you a list of what I thought was good, and you guys can take a look at that later.
Yeah.
So, anything else you guys have been watching, reading, doing?
Nothing for me.
Not that I can think of.
Okay. All right. Well, we can jump into our discussion of the holiday horrors of Mike Dougherty. Being that Krampus Nacht is coming up this Sunday, following this recording, I thought it would be a great time to watch Krampus. Harrison, you had seen it once before.
Yeah, I've seen it once.
Katrina had never seen it.
I remember seeing the trailers for it, but I had never seen the movie itself.
Right. And I'd seen it, but I had just gotten the new, the Naughty Cut version from Scream Factory. So we all sat down and watched that. And then I also showed Katrina and Harrison watched it separately, but we all watched Trick or Treat, and they had neither one of them had seen Trick or Treat before. In honor of today, I'm wearing one of my Trick or Treat shirts from Cavity Colors, which is awesome. The long sleeve. I thought it would be fun to have that transition from Trick or Treat to Krampus in a way as a transition from the holidays of Halloween to Christmas time. So what did you guys think of, let's start with Trick or Treat first, since it was the first one that was released. What did you guys think of Trick or Treat?
I liked it a lot. It was very good. I liked the not anthology.
No, it is an anthology.
Okay, well, yeah, it's the like the 4 narratives to it. I like that a lot. I like that they kind of run the gamut on supernatural to mundane to like a Halloween Scrooge story, which was kind of fun. But no, just all 4 stories were great. I liked the encapsulating it all in some like small Ohio town, and just having this weird Halloween that everyone experienced.
Right.
And so no, it was very good. Liked it a lot. Effects were great. Thought the use of practical effects were very well done, especially with I'm just going to call it the spirit of Halloween Past, because that's all I can really think of it as. That's
Sam.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah,
Okay.
they call him Sam.
Those effects were really good. I like the pumpkin effects. It's just very gooey.
Yeah.
Pumpkins are very gooey and work very well for practical effects like that.
Yeah, no, I liked when at one point he gets shot in the head, and you know, spoiler alert for people who haven't seen the movie that's like over a decade old, but at one point he gets shot in the head and it's literally just pumpkin guts like spilling out of his head, and which was great effect because you're just like, okay, so he is just a pumpkin? Like, what is he? But yeah, no, the effects were great. The practical effects were great in it. You get a lot of good stuff. I don't think there was much digital. If they used digital at all, it was for like cleaning up stuff, like rather than than anything that they could have done practically, which was great. Like practical effects for the win. Like in any movie, like if you can do practical, do it, because digital is okay, but you can definitely tell that it's not always great. I mean, and speaking of digital, talk about how they use it in Krampus. Krampus has a lot of practical effects too. You get the Jack in the Box, you get Krampus himself, you get all that, but you do have some digital stuff. The gingerbread men, those are digital, but they're okay. I mean, they're digital, so it does kind of take you out, but there's no other way to do it in a way.
But there's something horrific about the gingerbread man being this digital thing surrounded by all these practical effects, like the elves and all the other things.
And I don't think it's always all digital. I mean, definitely they use it when they need to animate him and stuff like that. But I think sometimes it is physical, like when the one boy is eating the one gingerbread and takes a bite and stuff. I mean, that's obviously when he's holding it. That's an actual practical thing. But yeah, when they need to animate it and stuff like that, it's great. I mean, and that was the great thing too, like talking about like something getting like not necessarily shot in the head, but when he takes the bite out of him, it's like it's actually pure cookie still, So it's like it's so fun that they're like keeping to the, they're not going ooey gooey with like brains or something like that in those instances, because they go with something just natural, and that's fun to me. Yeah.
But what did you think, Katrina?
Well, back to Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
I liked the movie. I saw Krampus first.
Right.
So there were some things in Trick or Treat that I kind of related to Krampus. I can't think of them right now, sadly. But there were definitely some like similarities, because same director. So I'm sure that there were some things that he wanted to keep continuous sort of throughout his movies. I really liked the different narratives. I liked that the kind of timeline was kind of jumping around, but you got to see to see it in a way that was like, oh shit, that's that person and that's that person.
You got some overlap of like the time was very slippy. So
it kind of reminded me of so I had seen Halloween 2018 before I saw Halloween Kills. There's this couple who are dressed as a nurse and a doctor in 2018 that you kind of just pass by in the movie, but then they're pretty much main characters, or like sort of main characters in Halloween Kills.
They're more prominent in Halloween Kills. Yeah,
it kind of the different ways where they like the kids would pass by the adults
Yeah.
walking down the street, or like the principal or whatever,
Right.
or being near the couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. No, and
That was
that,
really
Well,
cool.
I think my favorite example of that was when he was walking back into the house and Mr. Krieg was getting
Yeah.
attacked
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
Sam, and,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Help, help!" And,
Yeah.
and the principal was just like, "Nope," and then went into his own story.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting, because the thing that happened with Sam and the principal takes place before the stuff that happens in the quarry, basically.
Yeah.
I'm assuming from the timeline.
Right.
So when you see Sam at the top of the quarry with the girl there, that's after he's already killed Mr. Krieg. So
Yeah.
supposedly.
Well, Sam
Yeah.
doesn't kill Mr. Krieg, remember?
Okay,
spoilers.
right. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I don't, again,
I'm
it's an over 10-year
kidding.
movie. I don't care about
But-
spoilers.
Sorry.
So,
but yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then I don't know when this takes place, but the whole like werewolf thing where they eat the principal.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, it takes place after he.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
it
and
takes
so,
place after he kills the kid, but like he buries the kid. But
I would say that's the last thing that happens. in
yeah,
the
I feel
night.
like
Yeah,
that,
that-
had to have been
well,
because
except for the woman taking down the decorations.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the very
that's-
last
yeah,
bit.
that's the last
Yeah, I
one.
think
Which is
this-
technically also the,
the
first bit.
one,
Yeah, it's the first thing we
Yeah.
see, but
that's-
it's the
that's
last
what
thing
make-
that happens.
That's what makes the movie really
Yeah.
cool, is because the chronological timeline is different from how it's presented in the movie,
Right.
and it makes
And it all works. It
Yeah.
all flows.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
feel disjointed. It feels
No.
like pretty natural. And
Yeah.
the jumping around, like when you see something from another story
Having
you've seen,
that,
or if you remember something from earlier in the film, that's
there's a dramatic irony to
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
that the audience knows
Yeah.
something
Well,
that the people in the movie don't.
The funny
So
thing
it's-
is because you and
It is
I,
dramatic.
Katrina, just watched it like the other day, and then Harrison just watched it yesterday. I caught at the beginning that, at the very end, you see the girl with the pumpkin walking across the street, and the girls in the car, the werewolf girls in the car, stop and like honk at her and everything. You see that at the end, but you see it at the very beginning
Yeah.
too. But you only see like the feet of the girl. You only see
Yeah.
the wheel of the car. So you're getting this other perspective at the beginning that comes into play later on, and then you get that deeper, like, oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
cool, And so there's a lot of that, and so like with
it
me,
really makes the audience have to pay attention to what's
Oh, yeah.
going on. Because
Yeah.
if you don't catch those things, then you're not fully understanding like what's going on in the movie.
well, and not only that, but it makes rewatching fun
Yeah.
because then you're watching it again and catching the things that you didn't catch
Yeah.
before, because now you know the story, and then you can go, oh, I didn't see that the last
Yeah.
time.
So that's
Rewatchability
my
is
favorite
high.
thing about both this movie and Krampus is that I think that what the director has done with both of these movies is he has really created movies that aren't just horror holiday films. Like
Right.
they're not just like a Silent Night, Deadly Night kind
Yeah.
of like,
They could-
oh, it's a horror and it's Christmas.
Yeah.
But it's actually the themes of the movie are themes that we always associate with the holiday.
Right.
So Halloween, it's about trick-or-treating and about dangers lurking in the dark and things like that. And the whole movie works with those themes.
Yeah.
And then Krampus, in a much similar vein, is at its heart a family movie. It's
Yeah.
it's a family Christmas
Well,
movie.
and it's about keeping
that
the
things
spirit
go
of the holidays
horribly
in
wrong.
your
Yeah,
heart
yeah,
rather
it's-
than
And
it's
so-
all about keeping the spirit of Christmas alive, especially for children. So
Right.
that's
and I think it's great. I think that's what makes these movies so good, in my opinion, because it puts them a step above some other things, because they can. I feel a lot of things kind of take things for face value,
Right.
where it's a like for example, and not to bash on it, but Halloween. Michael Myers is an escape killer who wanders around town and kills people around Halloween.
And
But
ends up
there
going back to
isn't
his house.
anything specifically Halloween
Right.
about
it's
it.
just setting,
it's just
new background stuff. It's all
Yeah.
Halloween.
The
kids
day
are
that it
trick-or-treating.
happens.
Yeah, it's just
there,
the day
there are
that
pumpkins,
it happens.
there are
It
kids in
just happens to be-
costumes. It's
yeah.
just it's the day that Michael Myers
Right.
escaped.
It doesn't feel like it's the spirit of Halloween
No.
like Trick or Treat is. Trick or Treat is about the spirit of Halloween.
And not to say
Krampus
that
is
Halloween is any bad, like any
No.
worse than Trick or Treat for that. But from a
It's two different views of what
repeated
Halloween is.
watching experience of
Yeah.
like, let's watch this around Halloween. I feel Trick or Treat has a lot more replayability than Halloween might have.
I agree.
because-
I think that both Trick or Treat and Krampus both have that perennial, every year watchability that.
To be a tradition. To
Yeah,
watch
that-
it
yeah,
for the
exactly.
holidays.
Krampus is the elf of horror.
Yeah, I do like Elf. But I mean, that's the thing. I think that with both of those movies, that you get these they're fun. They're both fun. They both have a lot of humor in them. They both have a lot of good horror. There's definitely in both of them. There's some scary moments. There's a lot of good effects. I wouldn't say either one is overly gory.
Also-
You're not getting a lot of blood and dismemberment and stuff
No.
like that. A lot of the kills in both of them are
Right.
generally off screen.
Yeah, they're either off screen
You don't-
or they're. Speaking on Trick or Treat, if they're not off screen, they're like a poisoning or something, and it's like
they're fairly
it's,
bloodless in terms of
Yeah.
like, at least in terms of like what the amount of gore and blood you're seeing on screen. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even that with Krampus.
I will say for both of the movies, I think the soundtrack isn't memorable because I don't remember the music.
Yeah, I don't
being
remember the
from
music at all.
movies.
But for that
it-
point though,
Yeah.
the story is more memorable than the
Yeah,
music,
yeah.
and honestly, that's
I
kind
would
of what
say-
I would want from a film like this
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
But I would think in
Especially
terms-
for horror movies, I don't think. The
But that's the
soundtrack
thing,
is
I think in
necessarily
terms of-
important for the story if you're a good director. And a
Yeah,
good
well,
writer.
and I think that music is a good complement. Music shouldn't necessarily stand out either. It should be a great complement for the movie and should be something that isn't obtrusive. You're going to get movies, like there's a lot of movies where music is like a huge part of it, and that's great. Quentin Tarantino stuff, James Gunn's stuff, Edgar Wright's stuff. All their stuff uses like, popular music to great effect. And then
anything
you get,
with John Williams.
Anything with John Williams. You get great scores, you get great soundtracks, you get all this stuff. And that's awesome. But I also do believe in the, a soundtrack should just complement something and just be just good enough that you're not bothered by it.
I think a lot of films rely on the soundtrack to make you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
So rather than,
especially in horror.
yeah.
So rather than
It sets a
putting
mood
something
or a
on
tone.
screen that makes you feel it because you can see it, or
Yeah.
a character is saying something, and that makes you feel that way. I
Right.
feel that a lot of movies, even beyond horror, use soundtrack to a
Definitely.
worse degree because they use it to just kind of create the mood and make you
Right.
feel something rather than actually you feeling it. It's just
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
music is suspenseful, so I'm in suspense.
Yeah.
This music is energetic, so I must be
Right.
on the edge of my seat. But even if the action on the screen doesn't reflect what the music
Right.
is trying to convey,
Yeah.
and so I'm completely fine with a unmemorable soundtrack because I think that means that I was
And I
paying
don't-
more attention to the
Yeah.
characters
Yeah.
and the story than I
And
was
again, I
to
don't think it was
music.
necessarily unmemorable. It just was. It felt so complementary to everything
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you didn't notice it. It just was so
There wasn't
much a
anything like
part of it
the
that everything
tone
meshed
thing
really
either.
well. And speaking to that, it's Mike Dougherty has made another movie after these two. It doesn't fit within this theme or anything like that, but he made Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is my favorite of the modern Godzilla movies. And because, and speaking to the soundtrack stuff, we're getting aside here because I didn't want to really talk about Godzilla, but, speaking to the soundtrack, that has my favorite soundtrack of the modern Godzilla movies too, because it is memorable, because it's using a lot of the touchstones of the old Godzilla music from the Showa era, and so you're getting these callbacks to these themes, to Godzilla's theme and to Rodan's theme, King Ghidorah's theme, that kind of stuff. You're getting all of those in that movie, and that complements and also contrasts so well, and that makes you feel like, especially if you're somebody who doesn't really know Godzilla stuff, you're not going to notice those beats, but if you're a fan, then those are those things that you're going to go, oh my god, that's so awesome that they included that. And that's what I miss out of, like, I love Godzilla vs. Kong also, but I miss that they didn't really do that. And that's fine that they didn't. They wanted to make it their own thing. But I was all like, they didn't use the Godzilla theme. I mean, at least use the Godzilla theme. But anyway, back to Krampus and Trick or Treat. Back to Trick or Treat for myself. But so I'm not a big fan of anthology films typically. They're okay, but they feel so disjointed. Like the VHS movies. We talked about this before, that Katrina really liked the VHS movies. And they're fine. They're not.
I've only seen one.
Oh, yeah,
I
okay.
don't know which one it was.
I think I've seen all of them now. I've seen the recent VHS 94, and I didn't really like that one. It was fine, but nothing was really, like, nothing stood out. The first one is pretty good. But even then, the stories are so disjointed, and that's fine because they have different writers and different directors and stuff. And with a cohesive narrative like this one was, where you have these four tales and they're weaving in and out of each other, because we weren't stuck in one story the whole time. We didn't see the principal story the whole time, like one whole segment, and then move on to another one. It was we do this segment, and we're going to, like, weave back and forth until we get to the end, and you're going to see how it all wove together in this mishmash of time slipping and everything else, which was great, which worked for me like so much better than a traditional anthology movie, because it's so, I don't know. I think that's, for me, that's I know a lot of people like anthology movies, and they like being able to see different tones, different directors, different, things in those things. But I don't know. They don't usually work for me, but this one worked for me. And I really enjoyed that aspect, because it had that a singular voice, a singular driving in it, that it just worked on that level.
Well, and I think when it comes to Trick or Treat in terms of versus something like VHS, I think that VHS, from the one that I've watched, it didn't have a great framing narrative.
Right.
The framing narrative was poor in VHS, whereas the framing narrative of Trick or Treat is Halloween night, this Ohio town.
Yeah.
And that's all it needs, because it just says, this is Halloween and here's what happens.
Yeah.
And so it kind of has a lot of freedom to kind of do whatever it wants to do with it, rather than feel confined to, hey guys, I found a bunch of VHSs in this weird house. Let me put them inside of this VCR and see what's playing.
Yeah.
And because then it's very contained and confined, and each vignette, each aspect of the anthology doesn't have that same relationship with the characters that are in the framing narrative.
There's no connective tissue to it at all. So yeah. And I think that's and I don't even view Trick or Treat necessarily. I mean, I know it is an anthology, but I kind of don't view it that way. I view it as all one narrative. It's just with four different stories. Sam is in pretty much every version of it, and each story is almost like, because somebody broke one of the rules of Halloween. You got to give people candy. You don't blow out a jack-o'-lantern, and I can't remember all the rules at this moment, but it's like somebody broke the rule. Each person broke the rules, and that's how they ended up getting their comeuppance. Is that they
bully people.
Yeah. And so they got their comeuppance because they broke the rules of Halloween, and and that was great. And it's the same, and it follows through into Krampus too. It's like, keep the spirit of Christmas in your heart. And and it should be about family and togetherness, and and spending the holidays together, and the spirit of giving, and joy, and everything else. And when you don't, Krampus is going to come and get you, and it does. And that's what I think is great about, like, both movies really are both downers, like, in a way, like they're great, they're fun, but they're both downers by the end, And so, I don't want to spoil too much or anything for people who might be listening, but, they're downers. but in a good way, in the best way.
Yeah, I mean, downers, I think, is the wrong word.
Yeah.
It leaves you with a dark ending. It's not necessarily a downer. It's just a dark ending.
Exactly.
And each dark ending for both Krampus and Trick or Treat fits the movie.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel unearned. It doesn't feel like it was trying to make you feel bad by the end. It actually leaves you, at least for me, it left me with a grin on my face because it was just it was more funny.
No, they were perfect endings, especially like Krampus. You know, it's
that things were still a little not quite how they should have been.
Yeah.
Because there is also that with both of these films where there's a slight uptick of positive outlook. Towards the end, and then it cuts your legs out from underneath you.
Exactly.
And so that's why there's a little bit of smile at the end for myself, because it just reminds you, it's like, no, this is a horror movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And
not everything has to work out.
Yeah, not everything has to work out. Like, it doesn't have to be a happy ending, which again is something that I think that Hollywood in general doesn't quite do very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Hollywood really likes their happy endings.
So it's nice to see an unhappy ending occasionally.
Yeah.
But I think we should maybe talk about Krampus.
A little bit. That's what we are talking about right now.
Well, we've been talking about Trick or Treat a lot.
Yeah,
so
no, I know. And Krampus, you know,
we've been talking about Krampus in regards to Trick or Treat.
Right. So no, and that's why I was transitioning. Duh. Anyway, but yeah, but Krampus, I thought Trick or Treat gets a lot more of the publicity, I think, at this point, just because it's become one of those perennial Halloween movies, and Krampus, I think, is getting there as a traditional, fun holiday horror in that aspect as well. And you know, the cast is great. We got Adam Scott, most people are going to know from Parks and Rec and Step Brothers and stuff like that. He's great in this. He's, the dad. Toni Collette, the perennial horror mom, like, Hereditary, Sixth Sense, the Fright Night remake, and this. She's just a great horror mom. Well, I wouldn't say great horror mom. In this, she's great. Some of the other ones, like, Hereditary, she's not so great. But
are you saying not a great actress? Or?
No, she's a great actress.
Okay.
She's deserved multiple.
We got to clarify.
Oh, no. Yeah, sorry if that was confusing. No, she's great. No, I've been a fan of Toni Collette since Muriel's Wedding.
Yeah.
And that's like a Australia movie where she it plays a lot of ABBA music and stuff like that. It's a great movie. You'd have to go back and see it, but it's a fun movie. But I've loved her ever since, and so she's great in pretty much everything that I've ever seen her in. Krampus, of course, she's awesome in. So that for me, like, the adults, David Koechner plays the brother-in-law. I can't remember his name offhand now, but
Hank.
Allison Tolman. She's been in some good stuff. She was in the FX Fargo series, the first season of that. So she's been one of those people who's really good too. So like the adult actors and everything. Conchata Farrell plays the Aunt Dorothy. She's great.
Howard. Sorry, not Hank. Different Howard.
So they, like, the adult actors are all great. Even the Grandma Omi, she's great. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen her or anything else, but she's really good in that.
No, and it felt like they gave it their all. Like, it felt like in Krampus there wasn't any, like, if there was any campy performances, it felt earned. It felt like there was. I think like some of my favorite points in the film were whenever Howard was commenting on how rich the other family was, and we should have gone to my brother's.
Yeah, he's definitely the more of the, like, in your face comedy aspect of it. Yeah. And more of the campy side of it. And I think that's what the balance that both of these movies do really well is there is a camp aspect to them, a fun campy aspect of it, but done in a way that's also goes along with the seriousness of everything and doesn't ever undermine the horror, and the horror doesn't ever undermine the comedy. It's like a really good mix. And especially in Krampus, because the horror seems more horror even than what we got in Trick or Treat.
I think it's because you're not expecting a Christmas movie to be horror. So I think that aspect of it makes it seem like.
But it also has all the hallmarks of an actual Christmas movie. It's got it actually has a family with a family dynamic. It actually has these old wounds in the family as well as these like interpersonal relationships that have like caused tension and put everyone in the house for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and all of those kind of start to come out, and it's got all those things where the turkey's dry and like all those family comments and things.
Like a Martha Stewart.
Yeah, it looks like Martha Stewart threw up in here.
Yeah.
And so like all of those things kind of combine to create a genuine Christmas movie. And then you throw some monsters in, and things kind of go off the rails.
Well, and I love that each of the monsters too is very based in
Christmas
like
lore,
Christmassy. Well, I mean, not even Christmassy Christmas lore, but also, I mean, it is. But there's each one of the things is like one's a Jack in the Box, one's a gingerbread man, one's like the angel that you put on the tree. Yeah. But they're all the most horrible freaking like versions of these things.
As I mentioned in the first episode, I am a huge fan of The Thing and Alien, and so creature designs are really important for me when it comes to horror, and Krampus is just perfect.
Oh, Krampus has great
It's a delicacy
designs.
In terms of creature design.
I mean, the
Jack in the Box alone is amazing when it finally reveals itself.
Yeah. Opens its gaping maw.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's like that. Yeah. That and the bear. Angel's
the bear.
good.
Oh, yeah, the bear, yeah. The bear is great.
There's also the robot.
I like the elves.
Yeah, the elves.
I like the elves too.
Yeah.
I like the practical.
We didn't see
elves.
a lot of it. We didn't see a lot of them, and just in that major like that one scene when they come crashing in, and
they're also in like that final ritual scene.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, the creature designs were great. I mean, you get the kind of the demonic reindeer at the end too.
Yeah,
you just
reindeer.
Everything was so good.
Because we had the captions turned on, they actually had a name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they weren't reindeer. They were. I can't remember what it says.
I
but
usually have the captions on too, so yeah.
But they did have a name.
That's funny.
But no, Krampus's design Yule Goat. Yes, that's
Yule
what
Goat.
it was.
Okay,
yeah, which is awesome.
That sounds cool.
That's a great name for them.
The Yule Goats.
But Krampus's design is great because I love that he has these demonic aspects with the hoofed feet and the horns.
Giant horns.
But I also really appreciate the sanctification of the Krampus.
The dark sanctification.
Where he is this stretched Santa face with this like gray gnarled beard that just looks all dirty.
Yeah.
But he's still got the Yule red Christmas hood over him,
and sack,
and like all of that is really great, and I love that it keeps that imagery of Santa but just twists it.
Part of the Krampus thing, they mentioned it in the thing, but he's like Santa's shadow. So the reason he has a sack is to put children in the sack, them to wherever he goes to do whatever he does. Yeah. So it's part of his lore is that he has a sack that he's like sort of Santa-y, like he's
well, no, he's the person that comes for the bad children. Santa comes for the good children, gives them presents.
Yeah.
Krampus comes for the bad children and beats them with birch sticks and sticks them in his sack and takes them away and stuff like that. So that's what's great is that we get these.
We have a lot of German heritage in our family, and it is also a wonderful movie to see Krampus realized because it's a very interesting aspect of German heritage to have this nega Santa in our heritage of a stick beating.
We celebrated St. Nicholas Day for a few years.
We celebrate it every year.
Well, okay, so background. As kids, we just celebrated normal Christmas with you guys. We got the tree, we got the presents and everything. As you guys got older and Santa, you guys knew Santa. Spoiler alert, Santa wasn't real. For us, anyway.
What?
Shut up.
But Krampus is.
But Krampus is real. So as you guys got older and Santa became not a thing, and everything, our traditions in our house kind of changed, where we didn't really hold towards, keeping the presents until Christmas Day and having you guys open it. So we would then, and especially once your mom was teaching more and doing stuff about holidays with her students and stuff, that we kind of opened it up a little bit more. So we did more of the presents. We just kind of give you presents along the way whenever we kind of get them.
Nicholas Day. It was the night before Christmas, and then it was Christmas.
Right. So we did a lot of that where it was just like
January. So
yeah. So we did a lot more of like parceling out presents here and there, and more celebrating the month long of holidays rather than just the one day.
Which is a very German thing to do,
right?
Because
yeah,
it's a
exactly.
very Yule-tide kind of tradition to
right
to celebrate the holidays.
Well, and that's the thing. The day before
winter solstice season.
Yeah, and then the day before St. Nicholas Day, which is December 6th, the night before St. Nicholas Day is Krampusnacht. Mm-hmm. So so it's great to have that aspect of it just
December
beforehand.
5th?
December 5th is Krampusnacht.
Yeah, I thought you said December 6th.
December 6th is St. Nicholas Day.
I know, but I thought you were saying it.
Yeah.
No.
Sorry.
But anyway.
But yeah, so it's the night before. But yeah, as things went along, we just did that. And so I think that's like, and now that you guys have seen Krampus and everything like that, I think that can be kind of added into our kind of family tradition of like, Krampus.
Are you going to beat us with sticks?
Yeah, now I'm going to beat you with sticks, So I stick you guys in a sack.
Before we had even began watching Krampus, I listened to this podcast called Morbid, and they had a holiday episode, and one of the episodes they did it on was about Krampus and his like his helpers. I think that's what the thing is or Santa and his. I don't know what it was, but it was about Krampus, and so it was really interesting to have that background knowledge going into this movie, besides just regular Krampus knowledge.
That's
so
cool.
I had that interesting stuff, and they really delved deep into Krampus, and it was a really good episode. So I suggest listening to Morbid if you like true crime, and
I was actually
that one episode.
going to mention this at the end. Talk about podcasts we listen to.
That's the great thing about folklore and history in general is that some of the greatest horror that you can find is just in the minds of ancient peoples.
I mean the Grimm's the Grimm brothers. Like
there was a lot to fear in the dark back then, because
especially in Germany.
light was a luxury.
There is the Black Forest there for a reason. No, folklore in general, and that's what's great about Krampus, that it really ticks that folklore nerd bit within me, because I myself have always been fascinated by mythology and folklore from when I was a kid to now, and a lot of my stuff has been like geared towards that. Like a lot of my pop culture and everything, fascination with that is like I view modern pop culture as a modern version of folklore. It's our way of telling stories, and that's what folklore was a way to tell stories. You're telling moral stories, you're telling horror stories, whatever. And that's what we do now, but we're doing it on the screen, and we're passing on those things, to the next generations via screens and even books and everything else. But, that's what folklore was back in the day. And that to me is what is great. And especially about Krampus, like you said, Krampus, there's a huge amount of folklore surrounding it, and from different culture. Mostly the same, like similar cultures that are near each other, but like European cultures have versions of Krampus, or there's another guy called Swarty Pete, and like a lot of people call him Swarthy Pete. He's kind of like a black Santa. It's like not.
Yeah, I'm aware of him,
he's a darker Santa, not like black, like black person, but like a dark Santa, and it falls along the same kind of line as Krampus in that way, where it's like, the darker version of him who punishes the bad kids. So I love that. I love that there's all this that grows up around all of that, and the whole Saint Nicholas mythology, and and everything else like that. It's just so much fun, and I love that Krampus kind of leans into that. And
why can't a man just go around, give people presents, and not have some other guy show up who wants to
beating the other kids with sticks?
You know what I want to know is if Krampus destroys a fireplace the day before St. Nicholas is supposed to be there. What? How's St. Nicholas supposed to go in there?
That's how St. Nicholas knows not to go to that house. That the fireplace is destroyed because that's where the bad kid was. He knows not to go there.
Okay, fair enough.
There you go.
So, all right. Any other thoughts on Krampus or Trick or Treat? Any last thoughts?
You're better than I was expecting.
Yeah. No, they're both really good movies.
They didn't really scare me as much as they just made me uncomfortable.
They were just fun.
Yeah,
both Trick or Treat and Krampus were fun.
Yeah.
Like, they were fun horror movies that kind of each new thing that was introduced.
Yeah.
I think last thing I'll mention was I liked the Advent calendar. I liked the use of the Advent calendar as a time marking device.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was really good. And I like how they used it at the end where like each door opened up onto a different actor, like when they were doing the credits and everything. Mm-hmm. But each door in that version, on the outer door, there was a version of Krampus on each door. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you guys noticed that, but each door had a drawing of Krampus. So
good.
That was really cool. Okay. And like back to Katrina, what she was talking about more, but the podcast, I wanted to actually talk about a couple of podcasts that we all might be listening to. I don't know if Harrison's really listening to any podcasts currently, but Katrina, I know, listens to Morbid. She's been trying to get me into listening to it, but I haven't had the chance to. I've been listening to audiobooks lately, but I'm back on my Kingcast podcast listening the last few days, so I'm trying to get caught back up on that. That's one that I listen to a lot. Kingcast is about two guys, Scott Wampler and Eric Vespi, talking about Stephen King books and adaptations, and they have great guest stars on to discuss those books with them. Sometimes super high level people, like this week they have Guillermo del Toro on to talk about the book It. So I haven't listened to that because I'm still catching up, but that'll be a cool one to listen to when I get there. And another one that I listened to real quick is Donna the Dead. The is THA, and it's a friend of mine on Instagram. She started a horror podcast. She's a lifelong horror fan. She loves The Thing also. And she does a podcast once in a while when she gets it out. I don't think she's holding to any specific schedule at the moment, but she puts out a fun podcast that she just discusses each episode. Like this last episode, she talked about killer kids, so stuff like Village of the Damned and stuff like that. So it's a fun podcast to give a listen to. Harrison, did you have anything?
I was just going to say I'm not really listening to any podcasts at the moment, but I am listening to a few audiobooks. Okay. Right now I'm listening to some of H.P. Lovecraft's old writings, specifically At the Mountains of Madness, because I haven't read that yet. But very good so far, as someone who really appreciates interesting creatures and monstrous designs. That's definitely what I'm looking for.
Yeah. All right, and Katrina, finally, you can talk about Morbid.
So I've listened to about 50 episodes of their podcast so far, and I just love Ash and Elena so much. Like they go so, like, I've listened to true crime podcasts before, and just Morbid does it so well. Like, the interaction between Ash and Elena is perfect, and the amount of depth they go into each thing, like each true crime story or these lore stories, they don't even just go into true crime like Ted Bundy and Charles Manson. They also go into freaky shit that happens. They go into like spooky forests, like the suicide forest in Japan, and they also talked about the Black Forest in Germany. Okay. And they go into unsolved cases like the Dyatlov Pass incident and the Lake Bodom murders. Okay. So it's, I'm sure they go into a lot more, and they're so much more popular now than what I'm listening to from the podcast. So I highly suggest listening to them if you have the chance
Yeah,
and
it's
the
like-
time. So
yeah, it's
I
like when
haven't
I-
had to take a break recently from listening to them because there's just only so much true crime I can take.
Yeah.
At the time. So
No, that's what happened to me back when I discovered My Favorite Murder. And I loved listening to that when I first started listening to it. And I started from the beginning and going on, but I got to, I think, maybe 50 episodes or so, and I'd been listening to them straight through.
Yeah.
And I just got to a point, and I got distracted, and I found another podcast to listen to at the time, and I started listening to that one, and then I never went back to My Favorite Murder. I always planned to, but then I never got back to it. And I kind of got, like you said, I kind of got true crimed out. It was a little, after a while, it was like, oh my God, I just can't listen to any more true crime for a little bit. And like eventually I might go back and listen to some more of that, but
for other true crime podcasts, I'd only gotten up to about 20 episodes
Yeah.
in those ones. So for like Crime Junkie and My Favorite Murder, I'd only gotten up to like 20 episodes I could listen to before
Yeah.
I had to stop. But for these ones, 50 episodes.
That's
and
cool.
I think it's because they intertwine a bunch of different
yeah.
stories into it that it doesn't overwhelm you, because they do realize that for specific cases like the toy box killer, those are really, really hard cases to talk about, and so
Right.
they need a little buffer afterwards or before, so that you don't get overwhelmed.
Well, you played one in the car once when we were heading to the
That was
theater
the Lake
once.
Bodom one.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Because I wanted you to, because I wanted us to discuss the theories at the end, but we haven't finished it because
No, we'll finish it.
mean and don't want to
I
finish the
shut up.
episode.
I'm not mean.
But
I just got a lot going on.
know,
But yeah, no. And what I did
It was a
hear
good
though,
episode.
what I did hear in the beginning and everything was really good. So I mean, it's definitely sounded like a fun podcast to listen to, and I can see where a lot of people are getting into it. It sounds like, and you're not the only person that I've heard talking about Morbid recently. So it
the
definitely
reason
feels
why I started listening to Morbid is because I went to like the Spotify like podcast charts, and they
Right.
were like in like top 10 or 20 or something like that.
Oh,
And I was
yeah,
like,
I'm sure.
I haven't listened to them yet, so let me go listen to them, and they're awesome. So
That's awesome. Okay, cool. I think that about wraps it up for today. We are planning on doing 2 more holiday-themed episodes. One will be about Silent Night, Deadly Night 1 and 2, and the other episode will be about Black Christmas and its 2 quote-unquote remakes. So we will be having a lot of holiday horror fun here on the podcast in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned and stay creepy.
He's always watching.